The way we lead impacts the way people live. This world needs truly human leadership. I'm Brent Stewart, your host. Thanks for listening. This podcast is an outreach of Barry-Wehmiller. You can connect with us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter at Barry-Wehmiller, and find our podcast articles and videos at trulyhumanleadership.com. You're listening to a Truly Human Leadership podcast refresher, where we reshare insight from podcast episodes from the past. Welcome to part 2 of a Q&A with Barry-Wehmiller CEO Bob Chapman. We asked our social media and listening audience for questions, and you responded. So here's part 2 of those answers, and this episode starts out with Mary Rudder just asking Bob Chapman what he's been thinking of lately.
What's on your mind today, Bob, as you think about what you're doing?
Well, I would say when I look at kind of the media today and the issues we face as a society, whether it's investigations or issues of abortion or immigration or taxation, all the kind of wedge issues that divide us. And I see, in my lifetime, kind of the growing division of our country, not unity, but things that divide us, defining what's on the media instead of things that unite us. And I believe that, because we've had the privilege of sharing this message in virtually every part of our society, military, healthcare, education, business, nonprofits, that our message is so right for what the pain people are feeling in this country. Not because of economics, not because we're sending our young men and women off to war, but because they don't feel valued, they don't feel cared for. And whether you're a teacher teaching young kids, where we found that 71% of them feel disengaged, whether it's working with people at work where three-fourths of the people are disengaged, whether you're dealing with doctors and nurses who are leaving the profession in record numbers, they're burning out. And so I see in every part of our society that what we lack is the very thing we were blessed with, which is leadership being defined as, the stewardship of the lives entrusted to you, as opposed to your own, again, one of the things that I feel is thoughtful is that the word management, which is used a lot in all facets of our society, it means the manipulation of others for your success. And leadership is the stewardship of the people whose lives are entrusted to you. And I think it's a simple message, it's a powerful message when you look at people not as a function, but as somebody's precious child who's in your care, and you know that you're going to, in fact, not only, in quotes, their professional role in your care, but they're going to be impacted their health and the way they go home and treat their spouse and kids. That I think if we can elevate that message, which I believe is being elevated through all the mediums that we're going to, and my hope is in the time I have left that we shape a message that the world can embrace, and we can instead of worrying about world peace, we worry about world caring. And I think for somebody like Bill Urey to have said that when he visited with our people and our plants that he saw the answer to world peace, and I think, how can you go to a manufacturing plant in Wisconsin and see the answer to world peace? And his answer was, I saw a place where people genuinely cared for each other. And how are we going to create a world where that is true in every profession, in every country, in every community, where people genuinely feel cared for? And it's actually simply a skill where you learn to do that. So I think we've discovered the code, been blessed with the code, are now aware of a code that could profoundly change the world as we know it and heal a lot of the things that people just don't know how to deal with. We try to blame it on social media, we try and blame it on unrest in the world, and it's really just, we've never given people the skills. Our education system has been focused from here to here, and it needs to bring a focus from here to here. This journey from the head to the heart is what our education system can, and we could fix it tomorrow. Start creating young men and women who genuinely have the skill to care for each other in their pursuit of their own personal goals and in service to their community. So I think I'm incredibly encouraged that we're getting voices of reason joining us in this journey, and that we will yet leave this world better than we found it.
One of the critical skills or abilities of leaders is to be able to give feedback, effective feedback. Lule wants to know, what is your favorite method of giving feedback to team members?
You know, I was raised in the business world where annual reviews, and usually it becomes a 2-page, like checking into the doctor and answering all the questions. That once you become a leader, you've got to fill out for technical reasons for the personnel department for your record. And I have come to the conclusion, that was career-wise, that's just what you did. Now, I rarely ever did that. I hate details like that. But I didn't have a good reason why I didn't do it. But I've come to the conclusion that in quite a part of most organizations, what's called an annual review. Can you imagine being married and sitting down and having an annual review of your marriage? Okay, it's inhuman. And, you need a continuous relationship of feedback with respect. So there's no reason to have an annual review, because everybody knows things we did well, things we didn't do as well, and things we could do better. So we're trying to move a very technical process to a more human process. At one stage we called it My Path, at another stage we called it Grow More, where we engage everybody, because one of our guiding principles of leadership is we're committed to the personal growth of our team members. If that's true, tell me how with every 12,000 person, every individual in your 12,000 person organization, you have that dialogue. That's our aspiration, okay, is to move from this annual review, technical, make sure you got to document it, so if you have to fire them, you got good reasons. It's just something people hated to do, we didn't have the skill to do, and everybody filled it with their own preoccupations, and was worth nothing, in my opinion. So we need to move to a more human way of not review, but how do we have that 360 where we say, again, there's what's called positive psychology, going from, let me tell you what you did wrong this year, because I'm really trying to justify not giving you a 5% increase, only 3%, so I need to kind of make sure I lower your expectations and show you you're not perfect. And so when you mix annual reviews with compensation, it's slanted towards, you got to be careful, because if you say they're too good, they're going to expect too big a raise. So, we mix up two totally different things. So we're trying to move to a basis where we sit down and have a dialogue about, 5 years from now, what would you like to be doing, and what's your thoughts on what that is? You want to be a leader in the plant? Do you want to work in the sales department? Or do you love what you're doing, and that's great, and you want to continue to progress in that? So we need to change the dialogue from an inhuman technical compliance to a human personal growth opportunity. So people feel the only limitation for them personally is their own ability, finding the right place for them where they can feel valued and feel they're contributing.
Okay, we have a question now from Chuck about compensation. And he writes, it's interesting that when the topic of incentive compensation comes up among people interested in what we might broadly term as conscious capitalism, many seem uncomfortable with the idea. It's as if paying someone a bonus for goal attainment or growth is somehow incompatible with the notion of loving and respecting your employees. I'd like, Bob, for you to comment on your philosophy around incentive compensation and other forms of incentives. And if you believe that they have a place in running an organization in which everybody matters, how do you approach the use of incentives? Is everybody eligible? What sort of things do you think should be rewarded? What's going through your head right now after I read that from Chuck?
Well, what goes to my mind is the 1997 initiative where we created games. And you remember, I walked into I walked into a brand new company I just acquired. I was having a cup of coffee. I didn't know the people, and it was March of 1997. They were all betting on March Madness, which I didn't really care. I never bet on basketball games, but they were having a ball. It wasn't the money. It was, which team won last night and who are we in. And so you just saw people having fun. And what's amazing to me is I didn't think of it at the time because I didn't really care which team was winning. I just kind of was observing behavior because I didn't know them and they didn't know me. And so I walked in that room with our customer service team, which just happened to be my first meeting. I didn't have an agenda. I was just going to meet with them because it was a significant product line. And an idea surfaced, which I articulated, which I'd never thought about, never read about, never tried. So it was totally spontaneous. We're going to have this incentive. If whoever sells the most spare parts each week will get $100. And I didn't think about the reward. That's what the spontaneous idea was. And if the team made the team goal, each team member would get $100. Again, never tried it, and all I wanted to do, I think, and again, I didn't reflect, I didn't think, I just observed something. My mind was actually working, I wasn't even aware of it, and what was being shaped in my mind came out in that meeting, and people were kind of negative about it. They didn't like the idea of competing against each other, but I had this passion that said, let's try it. And because I'm CEO of the company, they did. Came back 3 months later and said, what happened? Revenue went up by 20% and joy went up by 1,000%. Because if you think of most, and this is really two pieces. It's incentive, but it's also playing a game. Because what we created was a game. The rules were real simple. Whoever sold the most parts wins, and if the team make the team goal each week, the team wins. And it was just so happened I did it for a week, not a month, not for the quarter, a week. And we saw a profound change in behavior because most people in most organizations go to work every day, they do what they think is required of their job, and they go home and somebody would say, how's your day today? I said, fine. Didn't get fired. Nobody yelled at me. Don't think I made any mistakes. So not a bad day. When we created this incentive, $100 incentive for hitting a target, which was, again, not well thought out, it was just spontaneous, we saw people start having fun together. Because I realize now that most people who play the sport of business play without a scoreboard. For the first time ever, we brought to a team of people and we put a scoreboard up in the middle of the basketball court that said, here's the score. Mary's winning, but the team is ahead, and everybody feels either an individual or a collective sense of joy. And it profoundly changed the dynamics in the team and profoundly changed the way we treated our customers. And I had no idea of either. So I would say to you, if you can align, I'll call them incentives or games with having an incentive component, to value creation for everybody, everybody wins. And what we saw was a great sense of knowing the score. When you went home at night, you started talking to your family. Otherwise, it was just kind of, if it wasn't a bad day, it wasn't a good day. Because most people, when they go home at night from most jobs in our country, even in our company today, most people go home saying, how did I do today? I don't know. And that leaves a sense of self-judgment, gee, I'm not meeting the expectations of my leader, I've disappointed some people. So what this did was it stimulated a behavior in people that I had no idea would do. When people are having fun, they're expressing their gifts fully, and if you can, this game just happened to be totally aligned to value creation for the customer and our team member. And we paid an incentive. And some other people in the company would come up to us and say, I work in the shipping department. I ought to be, how come they get paid an incentive and I don't? And my answer was, Oh, you're welcome to be paid an incentive. All you have to do is apply for one of their jobs, because they have a very high value creation job. They are dealing with our customers every day on the phone, and that relationship is key to you. So if you want to be in that job, that is fine, but you need to be able to do that. So it's you know, it's a struggle for people when they see these games and motivation, but for people working in the department, it's the ultimate job. Because you go home, you always know what the score is. Can you imagine watching a sport with no scoreboard? How'd you do? Well, I shot a lot. What'd you score? I don't, nobody told me. Oh, really? What was the other team's score? Not sure. Well, was it fun? Well, I dribbled a lot and I shot a lot, but I don't know if we won. And that is the way most people see the role. They have no idea what the score is. Why does everybody like sports? Because they love to watch the score. Okay? They like to see people score. So that moment, that revelation that I had with that game showed me that whether you call it an incentive or a game, you know, there was a reward for winning the game that related to value creation, and it has profoundly impacted our businesses, created better futures for all the people when we have a highly motivated, and this group of people are constantly under self-imposed pressure to win collectively and individually, which is what organizations ought to be. It brings out the best in people. You could have trained people. We could have brought in trainers on how to be good customer service representatives, which would be the traditional approach. Here's how you answer the phone. Here's how you follow up. Wouldn't have compared to just creating a incentive, a game that valued behavior. So I would say to you, incentives have their place. They impact behavior. It's part of the capital free enterprise system. And some roles are more oriented towards incentives and others are not. So there's more risk in incentive jobs than other jobs. So we are evolving. It's a learning process. You always got to understand. You got to watch. You got to try things. Watch behavior patterns. Watch joy. We don't want to create incentives that destruct. We want to create incentives that create value. I mean, a weekly pay for your kids helping with the dishes is an incentive to help around the house, right? So we use them as parents, and we see changes in behavior. You know, I remember once being promised by my parents that they would buy me a shortwave radio if I did something that I didn't traditionally do. And man, shortwave radio, I did it. My parents were thrilled. Okay, was that an incentive? Yes, they created an incentive. So I would say to you, applied properly, and also with a lot of communication, which is important. Communication skills along with that, so people, it's not just about the money. We find that recognition is more important than award, okay? So they're both important, but being recognized and appreciated is higher than just being paid an amount of money.
Okay, good answer. Now we have another question, continuing on the theme of how to lead, and it speaks to what we do here at Barry-Wehmiller. We teach our leaders that it's really important to help set goals and then let the team figure out how to achieve those goals. Here's a question from Corey. What are the dangers of micromanaging, and how do you feel is the easiest way to stop managers from micromanaging?
Good question. First of all, you use the word manage. He used the word manage, and you repeated his word management. You can't, remember, I always say, I took management classes, got a management degree, and got a job in management, and I thought my job was to manage people. And what I'd say to Corey is, you can't manage anybody. Name anybody in your life you can manage. But we call people managers, so they try to do what the word implies, which is impractical. All you can do is motivate people. So micromanaging is just amplifying brokenness, okay? It's A, you can't manage, and B, you can't micromanage, okay? All you can do is inspire behavior, okay? And how do you inspire behavior? Is to set mutually acceptable goals that relate to the kind of the whole value for everybody, and see that it's not just individual. If you do your job well, others will benefit, because when we all play our position well, and I'll give you an example of that. If you think of Bobby Knight, the legendary Indiana basketball coach, and you think of him running up and down the side of the basketball court, yelling and screaming every play, do this, do that, and throwing his chair when he's mad. I mean, that's what I call micromanaging. He is intense in directing every single move of every single player. And then you take legendary UCA coach John Wooden, who sat down on the bench, rolled up his program, and sat there and let his people play. And he's the most winning coach in the history of college basketball. What's the difference? John said, I don't need to run them down. I taught my team how to play, and I'm gonna let them play. That is the best contrast between micromanaging and leadership. Okay? Bobby Knight won games, but he's not legendary in the way he taught. He won games, and if all you're trying to do is win games, then it doesn't matter how you get there. I would say how you get there matters. Okay? And John Wooden taught his people and let them play. And then Steve Jones, the legendary Steve Jones, the winningest high school football coach in the state of Wisconsin's history, Steve Jones doesn't even talk about winning. He talks about, to his team, about playing your position well for your fellow team members. And he's the most winning coach in the history of Wisconsin football. Won 5 out of 6 state championships, won 72 games in a row. And he doesn't talk about winning. He talks about playing your best for your team members. And that's the way we ought to have, that's the message of our society. Being your best self, not for yourself, but for others impacted by your behavior. So whether you talk about managing or amplified micromanaging, they're both broken. Okay, it's just a matter of how broken. And I think the Bobby Knight, John Wooden contrast is a perfect example of the way to win is to teach people well, and then give them responsible freedom to play the game.
We got a couple questions from Chris and Dawn, and they're pretty similar. I'll ask them together. They're basically about team building and team relationships. Chris says that he was just at an event, and I heard people talk about a strong push to ensure workers feel welcome by others and not just management, quote unquote. How do you handle employee-to-employee relationships and team building? And then Dawn says, in the same vein, that her firm has grown from 5 locations to over 30 in less than 5 years. What best practice can you share for teams that are spread out across many locations to build more meaningful relationships and show that everybody matters? So team building in the same building or same room, and team building across a wide variety of locations.
Good question. When our company maybe was $400 million in sales, we thought we were really big because we started at $20 million, so that seemed really big to us. And we worried that as we got bigger, we would lose our culture. In fact, the bigger we've gotten, the stronger our culture has been. It's just the opposite of what we logically thought. And we operate in 200 or 300 locations around the world. Then Raj Sisodia, my co-author, who traveled with me around Europe in the course of writing a book with me, was amazed that whether it was in northern London or southern Italy or the middle of Germany, is he found a consistency in our culture everywhere. So the point is, you need a foundational document that is applied in every location, that is a guiding document about our values and what leadership is, which is in our case, is our guiding principle of leadership. The second thing that I think is particularly interesting is something that I didn't anticipate. I began by just saying, I want to send our team members home fulfilled. It's a word I use, Simon now uses it a lot, but it's a word that just came to me. Send them home fulfilled, safe, healthy, and fulfilled. And to do that, I needed to develop leadership practices that validated your worth so you could go home fulfilled. What I didn't realize which came up in the Georgetown and Washington University study of our cultures in Green Bay and Akron, Ohio, was they found that 79% of our people feel the company cares about them, compared to 88% of the people in this country who feel their company they work for does not care about them. But that wasn't what surprised the universities. What surprised them was the high degree of altruism that existed. And altruism is doing something for somebody else without expecting anything in return. And what I realized when General Flynn came down to talk to our people in Akron is that when I established leadership practices to send you home feeling valued, that all of a sudden you felt safe, valued, and you began replicating that in your relationship with others and begin to do things for others that people, without expecting anything in return. That's what came back. So I believe we're born with a basic caring instinct, just like when animals who are born to care for the calves, and the foals. It's a natural instinct to care. And I think our society shifts you from mask that caring instinct to a self-serving instinct. And what happens in guiding principle leadership when you implement this and you start caring for people, it releases people's basic capacity to care. Because I didn't say to you when I was sending you home fulfilled, would you be nice to Mary and Courtney and Bill and Frank and Mary? I just was focused on you. And what happened is, when you felt valued, you decided to follow your natural instincts to care for others and became contagious. So an unintended consequence of our individual caring was collective caring, which was very gratifying when we learned that. It was General Flynn that really taught us that.
Michael writes that he has read Everybody Matters. He's also read Raj's book, The Healing Organization. He wants to thank you for the insightful outlook on life and business. And he calls you the people's CEO, biting off Muhammad Ali being the people's champ, because you echo the sentiments of many people. And he wants to know what you would say to company leaders who do not cultivate family-friendly environments in their business, such as maybe even sponsoring events where family members are invited or involved.
Well, the vast majority of companies are not people-focused organizations. I mean, again, if 88% of all people in this country feel they work for a company that does not care about them, clearly it is a rarity when people feel cared for. And sometimes I would say to you, it's not a purposeful caring. In other words, they didn't learn to care. They're just naturally caring people, okay? And so I think the 12% are just naturally caring people who have been able to naturally blend it. It wasn't a learned skill. It was just a natural skill that in their position of leadership they could do. So what I say to most leaders then is leadership is a privilege, and the people that you have the privilege of leading, you will affect their health and the way in which they go home and treat their family. And do you understand that you're more important than their family doctor? And again, I would say to you, nobody debates what I just said, but the question is, how do I do it? So I would say to you, these are not bad people. It's a bad system, okay? Good people in a bad system, the system prevails, okay? So we need to let people's natural ability to care for each other come out and feel safe. So they feel safe and they feel safe. They feel cared for themselves and they care for others. So my advice, I say to CEOs all the time, you are the problem in this country. We are not creating leaders who have the skills and the courage to care. We're creating people who are focused on themselves and money, power, and position. Because again, if we define success in our society as money, power, and position, it's all about me. And really, it's all about how we care for others. That's where we want our children to work. That's where we want to work, and that's the way we are intended to live and work together. So it's a pretty easy statement I make to other CEOs. Now, again, I've had senior executives of major corporations say, I believe what you're saying, Bob, but how do I handle my board of directors? And my answer is very carefully. because they're not going to understand. This is a foreign language to board of directors, okay? Or people have that. It's a foreign language in most companies because it's about, the language of business from day one has been about numbers. Value creation is measured by numbers, not human dignity, not human people feeling valued. And so we've been kind of self-destructing as a society in the interest of economic gain and the belief that economic gain is happiness.
I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it right. DeMagie? I'm probably not, and I apologize. He asks, if everybody matters, what should we do to help them grow and improve in both their careers and life?
Pretty easy question. If our children matter, what do we do to prepare our children for life's experiences? And I think it all starts with a sense of a higher purpose. If our education system is always about grades and the best in the class and the promotion of the best in class, it's never about the best human in the class. So we have a system that kind of rewards the high intellectual achievers. Boy, valedictorian of the class. So we have a society that judges people too much on intellectual capital, not enough human capital. And so, I would say to you that my view is that we need to shift to our dialogue, our sense of purpose, to making sure that everybody realizes their potential as best we can as stewards of those lives, whether they're within our family or within our company or within our friendships. That people are encouraged along the journey, but appreciated for wherever they end up in that journey. Again, we got to move from a society that measures success by money, power, and position. Because I know many people with all three who are not happy, but they seem, in quotes, successful. What is success? Living life fully with your skills in service of others. That's how we should define success.
Okay, consider this from Megan. If you were limited and could only implement one aspect of our culture philosophy in an organization, which one would that be and why? And I probably should point out that Megan also added a hashtag. It's hashtag Bob Chapman Rocks. So I think she's kind of a fan. So what would you say to Megan, fan Megan, about what would be the one aspect you would implement if you could only do
Well,
one?
knowing that Megan's a fan does not alter my response because I'm a fan of Megan's. Okay? And what I would say to you that it's a really easy. That's the biggest softball you could throw me because it's empathetic listening. If I could only do one thing in the skill sets we've been gathered through our university and teaching how to go from management to leadership, it would be empathetic listening because the power of that is fundamental to life because you learn to care for others, and that is the foundation for wherever you go. Without that, you cannot go to the place where you want to go.
Speaking of going places, we have Pascal from Switzerland, who follows our blog for years, and his question is this. How do you approach people in the organization who are toxic to the business surrounding? Can you develop them to become high performers, or do they have to leave the company after some unsuccessful coaching?
Bill Urey, the World Peace Negotiator from Harvard, who visited our company, described our culture as courageous patience. When we look at any individual who may be toxic, I think of the name Randall Fleming. Randall Fleming was viewed as somebody in our plant in northern Wisconsin. Stay away from Randall. Randall, tough guy, got a military background. You just stay away from Randall. And that was perfectly fine with Randall. But Bill Urey describes it our culture as a bus going around a circuit. Bus pulls up to your stop, your place of work, and says, do you want to join us in this journey to truly human leadership? And you say, you know what? I'm just not there yet. And we say, that's okay, we'll be back. The bus leaves, comes back again, that door opens, and we say, like to invite you in, Randall, and he said, you know what? I'm just not comfortable. We said, that's okay, we'll be back. So that's how Bill Urey took the word courageous patience, respecting that everybody's journey has been different. Maybe somebody has been an abused worker in every job he's had. I mean, I've heard unbelievable abuses of people as I talk to people who have joined us from other companies. Just inhuman behavior as we manage, boss, supervise people. And so I need to respect that maybe it's going to take you longer to join us. So we don't focus on the people that don't get on the bus. We focus on the people that do get on the bus and welcome them. And because as those people get on the bus, they're going to invite others. So I would say to you, that would be my answer, is that courageous patience, respecting the fact that everybody comes to us with a different heritage of the way they've been treated, their personality, and the way they the way they look at their life purpose. And we have courageous patience as long as you're not hurting other people in your position. That's kind of the baseline of, we can't let you hurt other people. As long as you're not hurting other people, we're going to give you all the time in the world to decide to join us. But we spend more time focusing on the people that do get on the bus than we do those that are not ready to get on the bus. We don't judge the people that are not on the bus yet. We welcome the people that get on the bus of truly human leadership.
We've got two other questions here that are pretty similar, and I'll ask them both again at the same time. Marianne asks, what will it take to get more CEOs of both for-profit and non-profit organizations to understand that people come first in their organizations? And then Paul just simply asks, how do you get others to accept your ideas?
Good question. How are we going to create a movement, a caring movement, a movement from leadership, from management to leadership? And the answer is, we are going to use every means we can. We say we first have to live it ourselves. One of the beauties of our leadership model is it's not an academic theory based upon, surveys of people. It is this eclectic journey from management to leadership that we experience through the revelations. So we need to share that to give people hope, to give people a vision for what is possible. As Simon Sinek said, I'm no longer a nutty idealist, I've just seen what I dreamed of. Okay, that is encouraging even to Simon to see what he dreamed of. So even theoretical people in behavior who talk about all the psychological reasons we see behavior, it's very encouraging them to see it actually exists, okay? So we didn't start with the psychological, these revelations showed us changes in behavior, and we asked people why. And so I would say to you that we need to, if you will, share this in every way possible, through social media, through our behavior, through our book, and through speaking around the country, to invite people to join us in this journey and to move them from their heart says this is the way. One of our largest clients at our Leadership Institute, running one of the world's largest corporations, said this has given him a higher purpose. This journey of caring has really opened up something he was never, a very long, successful professional career, but this created a new purpose for him. So that's what we need to do. We need to create a sense that this is the way we should be moving towards. It's not an easy journey. It's much easier not to care, but the result is issues that we're all concerned about in our society. We're seeing it in our kids, we're seeing it in our adults, we're seeing it in our families, we're seeing it in our governments. We're seeing it in all facets of our society. Remember, I've never seen the level of anxiety, depression, and concern exist in our society at a time of record peace and prosperity. So we've got the crisis. We just need to focus on what we can do individually and collectively to move people in the direction of caring for each other.
Don't forget to find us and connect on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter at Barry-Wehmiller. And you can find more podcasts, articles, and videos at trulyhumanleadership.com. I'm Brent Stewart. Thanks for listening.